Hi, my name is Dolores Andrew-Gavin, and as the host of the Emotional and Mental Health Summit, I'm also giving a presentation on the summit myself, and I'm sharing with you a tool that I use, one of the tools, should I say, that I use with clients, and that is by working with the chakras in relation to both finding out the stories that are stuck in our lives and using the chakras as a way for us to change the stories that are coming up for us. And what I mean by this is, we all have our stories. My name is Dolores. I am an assertive coach. I'm a mum of 2 boys. These are all the stories of my life. But when we go deeper and when we're even creating content for our blog, our website, for social media posts, we're telling a story whether we know it or not. And oftentimes, if our story is coming across in a way that is out of alignment with our own true story, people can see through this. An example of this is where we have a core value or belief around something, yet when we post a post, what we say in that post or on that blog contradicts almost our core values and beliefs. And as I say, this can be quite transparent and people can see through our stories, and this can be done very unconsciously at times ourselves. So when we say that it's done unconsciously, it just means really that we're not aware we're doing it. And it's when someone points it out to us, we realize the little tweak we just need to make, and having our content or anything we're writing in alignment with our core values and beliefs really makes people realize who we are at our essence and what story we are actually really trying to share. So our own root voice comes from our sense of how we feel we belong in the world, how we feel people will relate to us, and how our confidence is. This is all going to be spoken through our throat chakra. So each one of the chakras, the 7 main chakras, are aligned from our root, from where we sit, right up to the top of our head, the crown chakra. And each of the 7 major chakras has an awareness attached to it. So any story that we have in our life, we can look at the chakra system as a template to help us know where we need to make these tweaks that I discussed earlier. You'll get the gist of this, what I'm trying to say, as I go through each of the chakras, because as I mentioned, they each have an awareness. And it's when we realize that these energy centers, whether we are aware of them or not, whether we believe in them or not, they're there, they're a part of us. And they're actually located, the lower chakras are located along the spine, right up in the throat chakra, all along the way up our spine. And they're associated with organs. For example, the heart is associated with the heart chakra, our sacral with the reproductive organs. And we know that they exist because it's where the feeling realm is felt. It's our felt senses we feel in the chakras. So for example, we might get butterflies in our stomach when we get nervous, let's say. Well, obviously we know that we don't physically get butterflies in our tummy, but what we're getting is an energetic feeling in one of our energy centers. We're feeling stress which is energy. We're feeling this energy in our stomach manifesting as a fluttering feeling. So starting off with the first chakra, I'll go through them one by one and let you know the awareness that is attached to each of them, so that you can use this if you come across a story in your life that you want to change. Now, we'll go through them on the way up first to the crown, and then I'm going to show you how you can use the chakras where, if you have an idea, maybe for a business or for a story, how you can ground that by there again going through the chakras and using them as a great tool to help you realize where you may get stuck trying to get your work project out into the world or your story, maybe you get writer's block, you'll be able to use the chakras as a template for anything in your life. So here we go. So the first chakra is located at the base of your spine. If you're in a seating position, you're actually sitting on your root chakra. So this is really our foundation. It's like a house or a building. It's built on a foundation, and that foundation needs to be substantial enough in order to hold the rest of the structure in place. And likewise, with our energetic center located at the base of our spine, this is our foundation for the way we are in the world. It's our sense of belonging and how we feel we belong in this world. Now, a sense of not belonging is at epidemic proportions. People feeling they don't know where they are or where to fit in. And this idea of fitting in really is, if we don't feel like we belong, we're trying to find somewhere that we find to fit in. But of course, if we try to fit in somewhere, most times we'll find we're not being ourselves. Because when we are being ourselves, coming from a place of belonging, we just fit in to our own tribe anyway. There's no trying, because really at the end of the day, we're all entitled to be here and to have our basic needs met. And our basic needs are another part of the first chakra. It's our instinctual energy. It's our fear as well, is the instinctual emotion which is attached to the first chakra. And it's also trust is another emotion that we can find can be lacking in ourselves in the way we go around with our work or anything. If our root chakra is not rooted and our foundation is not strong, because if we don't trust that we are entitled to be here and that we will have our basic needs met, then it's very hard to align anything on top of that. Because if we are trying to take a project out into the world, firstly, we might not trust ourselves to get it done. And secondly, we might not trust that other people will actually buy our product. Trust is huge, and trust is a first chakra issue. Taking a deep breath is a great thing to do for our first chakra, because what it does is it brings us back into the present moment, which, as I always say, is where the magic happens. Because in the present moment is where you make the choice to do one thing or another thing. It's the crossroads, it's the decision we make, it's the consequences when we do what we do. So when we trust this, when we have this strong sense of trust with the first chakra, we will be able to manifest so much more. But more importantly, we will be able to withstand the storms that will come through in our life, because we all have challenges, and many of them throughout our lives. And we may feel that some people have more than others, but sometimes it's the way that the other person can handle them, we might think better than ourselves. So first chakra energy, grounding ourselves, breathing, is a great way to bring us to the present moment, where we're not living in the past, remembering when we did something before and it didn't work out for us, and we're not projecting into the future and becoming anxious about something that hasn't actually happened yet. When we come back to the present moment, we can make a decision. Or at least what we can do is, when we come back to the present, we can create space between a situation and our action. It's that split second sometimes where we can stop and breathe and make a better judgment. We might not react as much if we take that breath and step away. Now, this is something, if we feel we have fallen into a habit of reacting in anger to situations when we get triggered by someone else's story or somebody triggers the story in us. This is something that we need to actually practice and learn to take that breath in the moment. And if we don't get it right all the time, it's to not have any guilt around that, because guilt is an emotion that can get blocked in our next chakra, the second chakra. So it's always just being with the now, being with the present, looking at the story that's coming up for us, whatever it is that we want to change, whatever reaction we want to change, and in the present moment, grounding ourselves in our wonderful first chakra with a breath, with feeling connected to the earth below, feeling connected, feeling as though we're held by the earth, as though, as I said, we have the right to be here, which we all have. Now, our first chakra it's developed for a start when we're in the womb. It's because it's our sense of belonging. And it's also got to do with how we perceive our relationship was with our main caregivers the moment we were born. And from then on, for the first year or so of our lives. Because when we're a baby, we are reliant on everything to somebody else. We're relying on someone else for feed, to change us, to all of our needs have to be looked after by someone else. So it's the basic needs. And if we perceived that our basic needs were not attended to, we may find that we store issues around trust. Again, in the first chakra, we might not trust people because we don't feel that we were looked after in the early years of our lives. And we may have a story around that because we're obviously too young to remember a lot of what will have gone on in those early days. Likely we will have been told a story if we don't remember, or we will have grown up and grow bigger in a situation that we will form stories around, and we will wonder why that we're not getting our basic needs met. So this first chakra will have a story attached to it that we may need to go back to and change that story at a later stage when we become aware by going through the chakras of where we have something blocked. I'll be back to the first chakra, no doubt, again as we go through the rest of this chat. So moving up to the next chakra, which is basically moving up the spine, about 2 centimeters beneath our navel, our belly button, is the next chakra, and it's called the sacral, and it governs our reproductive organs. The second chakra is our emotional center, and it's where we become very in tune with our emotional state. Excuse me. In relation to our emotions, we want to feel them all because our emotions are important. They are messengers for us. Some emotions get bad rap at times, like we may say that some of the emotions, but in fact, no emotion is actually negative. We just have this perception of it. And the emotions that are likely called negative are ones like anger and sadness, because they don't make us feel too good. But anger and sadness have their place for us, and fear is another one, because each of these, as I said, we call them more negative emotions. They're telling us something important. Anger is actually giving us a message that our own personal boundary is being challenged. We all have our personal boundary, and we may not feel it or see it, but if you ever got into a lift and felt a little claustrophobic, that's your personal space that you may feel like it being encroached upon. Or if you sit in the back seat of a car and you have 2 people and they're talking in front of you, and you might feel very suffocated almost, There again, what you're feeling is your personal boundary. So anger is something that tells us that, you might need to look at your personal boundary and strengthen it a bit. This will come up if somebody, say, perhaps threatens our power. When I'm talking about power, it's your personal power I'm talking about. It's not powering over anyone, or it's not allowing anyone to power over you. Your personal power is when you're standing firmly in your first chakra and you're speaking your truth and your opinions from a place of love with no intention to hurt anyone. But it's just standing, you're not playing small, you're standing in your personal power and you're speaking your truth. If for some reason we're not standing in our power and we're allowing someone to either power over us, maybe we're in a codependent relationship where we feel our power has been taken away from us, then we're likely to feel angry about this. But here's the thing, not only may we feel angry about it, but we may also get sadness coming in on top of this anger, because we might feel sad that we have ended up in a codependent relationship and having our power take away from us. And we may feel powerless to get our power back. So there we would have a situation where we would find ourselves with two negative emotions, whereas I say they're not really negative, but we might perceive the negative emotions wrapped around this story of our personal power. And that's what they are, stories, our beliefs about what's happening to us in our lives, with an emotion usually wrapped around them. So if we feel anger a lot, it's our second chakra we go back to look at what story is stuck there and what story it has got anger wrapped around it. If it's fear, fear is instinctual. Fear is first chakra in some ways, where fear is something that we don't need to be stuck in, although it's something that it's probably an emotion we feel the most, because it's very, if something is instinctual, it's in us anyway, and fear is important to stop us doing something that will be potentially dangerous. But we want to feel the fear and go through it, lean into it and think, is this fear really valid? Is it really good for me to be fearful of this particular whatever story is coming up for us? And sometimes it is. We certainly have to be fearful of some things, but we then decide, when we are aware of it, we can decide to make a different choice. So all the emotions here, of course, joy and all the emotions are related to the second chakra, and also the creative center, especially for women, because it's where we create a child. Moving up then to the third chakra, which is located at our stomach area. And it's also, as I mentioned earlier, where if we can store things like, or feel things like butterflies in our tummy, because it's our personal power and our will. It's our self-confidence and our self-esteem. And it's the chakra around our stomach that we will feel gets energetically triggered when we try to jump out of our comfort zone. Maybe with work or something like that, we get pulled back by ourselves if we are frightened to jump out of our comfort zone and into our zone of magic. Maybe our self-esteem, our confidence will just hold us energetically back in our third chakra. We might get knots in our tummy. We speak these kind of words. I have a knot in my stomach, I'm so worried about this or whatever. And we're worried about something because we might not feel confident enough, or as I say, we might just feel that we don't deserve to have this job. Likely, the story is a limiting belief. And what a limiting belief is really is just a story we tell ourselves. But it's a story that it's our truth, not necessarily the truth, but it's our truth around a situation. And usually our limiting beliefs are our excuses. So if we say, I can't do that because, what comes next is generally our limiting beliefs. Now, as I say, it's your truth. So we don't want to give ourselves a hard time over it. We might be holding on to this limiting belief for a long time. It may have been a belief that's passed down from generations to generations. And here we are now playing out this life with a limiting belief that was handed down from our parents and handed down to them from their parents. Generational patterns, generational beliefs. But we actually can make a decision when we become aware to actually break these and to transcend or get rid of these excuses and limiting beliefs, and actually change them to stories that bring us more of what we want in our life. An example of this could be someone saying, nobody in our house goes to college. We're all tradespeople in our house. Your father was a tradesperson, his father was a tradesperson, and you will be too. And you might be a person that actually wants to break this pattern. You want to step more into your power, and you might want to go to college and do marketing. Whatever our stories are, we can look at them and we can find out what's the limiting belief, or whether it's generational, not our own even, that's holding us back. Moving up then into our heart chakra, which is obviously located around our heart area, which is also governed by the heart chakra is governed by the physical heart. So this is a chakra that's obviously, we think of the heart, we think of Valentine's Day maybe and the lovely red hearts, but an awful lot of the heart chakra has to do with self-care and self-love. And I put self-care first there over self-love, because sometimes we can find it hard to even consider what self-love is, because we might consider it selfish, we might consider it something that is alien to us. But self-care is something that it's a necessity. It's not a luxury. Self-care is essential. We can't give from an empty cup. And when we don't look after ourselves energetically, we really don't have enough to give others. So our heart chakra is where we will feel hurt by others if we feel we're not having our self-care needs met. Now, it might not be the other person's fault. We may perceive it is, but if we haven't spoken to them from our throat chakra and let them know our needs, then they might not know we have these needs. So, but it's where we feel it. It's most definitely where we feel connection with others, relationships with others. It's where we hold wounds from past relationships. We might feel very wounded. We might close down our heart, lest we be hurt again. But to do this, unfortunately, is to not allow anything in. So we always want to, now obviously if we're grieving over someone, grief is a process, very different to any of the other emotions. Grief is a process, and there's a grieving period which has its different stages. But if we feel wounded, like let's say from a first love, which could be something that happened to us years ago, we may still carry the energetic memory of that in our very cells, and we may have closed down completely and sworn we would never love again, or never given ourselves to someone that we feel could hurt us so badly again. Working with the chakras is a very unique story. It's based on each person's unique perceptions of life and their life experience. Some things wash over people much more than others. Someone could get hurt in a relationship and process the hurt and let it wash off them. Another person might close down their heart for fear of being hurt again. No blame, no shame, because these are emotions there again that will be stuck in the second chakra if we hold on to them. It's about looking at our stories. It's about owning our stories, whether we like them or not, owning that we are where we are because of our past stories. We don't have to share them with anyone else, but we can become aware of them. We can become aware of the limiting beliefs that are fueling our actions, and we can make a choice to change. So coming up into the fifth chakra, which is our throat chakra, and this is where we express ourselves to the world. But it's also where we express ourselves to ourselves, because self-talk is such an important part of communicating. Because if we tell ourselves we are something, then we likely will be. So our self-talk is critical to look at and to identify what we're actually telling ourselves, because oftentimes what we tell ourselves, we wouldn't tell our worst enemy. It's shocking. So be careful of what you tell yourself. But firstly, for a start, become aware of it. Also, when we're expressing ourselves into the world, as I talked about earlier, coming from our root voice, if our root chakra and we feel as though we belong, we feel as though we have the right to be here and to have our story heard and to have our needs met, then it's likely our root voice is coming from a good place and we're able to express our needs to the world or to another, or we're able to express our story in a way that comes across very authentically. So being authentic means just talking in a way that is you as a person, as opposed to speaking in a way that you think others want to hear. I should really say this because others in my industry are saying this, or I should say this because this is what I was told to be a good girl. I was told to be respectful. I was told to never speak up, that nobody would want to hear what I had to say anyway. And whilst we always want to be respectful, we also want to make sure that we're asking for our needs to be met and we're verbalizing what those needs are. Our throat chakra also governs our ears. So this is all about hearing. And sometimes we only hear what we want to hear. There again, this is a personal journey, as I say, and there's no need to feel, no need to feel even that you don't want to hear this part of it, because if you know that someone is telling you something that's actually vital for your success or to help you, but you don't want to listen to them, then you're energetically blocking off a part of you. So there again, it's going back to just owning what it is around this area, because it's only when we own it and become aware of it, we can change it. Next up, we have our third eye chakra, which is situated in the middle of our forehead. And this is all about our gut instinct. It's about our knowing what we know. Did you ever do something and thought, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have done it the way my gut instinct was telling me? Because if you did it the other way, it won't have worked for you. We all can tune into this gut instinct. We just have forgotten how to. We have covered up our gut instinct and our internal knowing with false stories. There again, unconsciously at times, no fault of our own, no blame, no shame. It just is what it is. It's always the way to just accept. But it's when we pull back the veil of illusion that we can often live in, because sometimes we're in an illusion of a story. Other people are always great at pointing out these illusions to us. They can see a story better and the truth of it more than we can at times. Often this chakra, the sixth chakra, is where we have our aha moments, because we'll realize, I never saw it that way before. But when we allow ourselves tune in to this wonderful energetic center, when we allow ourselves dig deep and go into ourselves, we realize that when we do know the answer to a lot of the questions ourselves, but we've just, as I say, had them covered up with other beliefs. So when we start clearing from the first chakra up, we start pulling back the veil of illusion. We start seeing stories as they are. And finally, coming to the seventh chakra, which is situated at the top of our head and known as the crown chakra. This really is in relation to, our purpose in life and having a connection with something outside of ourselves. Now, when I say this, it's like it's a realization that our actions, even in the world, have an effect on others. We're not isolated islands, all just going along on our own little highways. Actions our voices have an effect on others. There's a connection. We're connected to others, whether we're related to them or not. Even if we send um, our love to someone that we don't even know, it's having an effect. It's energy. It's also our connection to something like, let's say, we might believe in God. We might believe in something. We might believe in nature. We just have this sense that there's more out there looking after us. We might believe in angels. It doesn't matter what it is, what religion we are. It's just a knowing that we're not here alone. And it's with this knowing that we can actually manifest what it is we're rooted in. So now going downwards very quickly, our crown chakra is also situated in our head, so it's connected to our brain. So this is obviously where our imagination is stored as well, in our imagination in our sixth chakra. But it starts in the brain. We might have an idea about some job we want to do or some project. So I'll show you how we can manifest it down the way and looking at what stops us getting it there. So we have an idea. We use our imagination. We start thinking about wonderful ways we can work with this, how we can, get excited about it. We might be able to literally see it panning out in front of us because we're using our imagination to see how wonderful it will be. Then we come down to the throat chakra with this idea, and we wonder how we're going to speak about it. How we're going to tell people about it. Now, we will be blocked here if we find we can't talk about ourselves. If we're blocked because we feel no one will want to hear us, ears, we'll be blocked here with any story around this. So it's one to look at if we can only get a story as far as here. If we can get through that block and through that and work through it down at the heart chakra, we can get stopped at the heart with a project we want to do too. Firstly, if our heart is not in it. Because with all the will in the world, sometimes we can have great idea after great idea. But an idea can be just an idea. And if our heart is really just not in it, it's never going to get out into the world, no matter how much time we put into it. We're going to get stopped here at the heart chakra each time. And secondly, there might be something, a relationship issue that needs to be sorted before you can get this project out into the world. And that could be how you relate to others. It doesn't have to be a significant other. It could be how you relate even to a team. Heart chakra will stop you. We move down with this idea of a project that we've started in our head, and we move down to the third chakra, which is obviously our confidence in getting this done, our self-esteem, our will to succeed. We'll get stopped here in fear, if that's what comes up for us, or we'll get stopped here if we feel, who are we to do this? There again, it's knowing which chakra to go to find out the answer to where we're stuck. Moving down, when we get through this into the second chakra, an emotion might come up like guilt or shame or anger or sadness. And these can come up we might be shocked at what is coming up for us there on an emotional level. We might still have anger from a past project that we tried to do, but that we feel that somebody did something to us, let's say, and we're still angry from that last project. And that can be associated with a fear almost to do it again. That anger stops us, and the fear stops us from getting it to that final step, grounding it in the first chakra into the world. So that's an idea of how we can use our chakras to just, as a template, as I say, to hold up and to see where is it we're stuck with our stories in life. And it's a tool that once you learn the workings of the chakras, you can use them with any story that's coming up for yourself. You can root in, find out what's stopping you, ask the questions, and from there, change those stories to make them ones that bring you more of what you want in life. Thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about the work I do, you can visit my website, celticsoulessence.com, where I have a 7-week online, self-paced, chakra demystified course, which gives you lots of tools to help you, and questions each week of the 7 parts. It's in Word document and it's also in audio, and there's meditation for each one, a guided one, to help you get the answers to why you're not doing what it is that you want to do right now. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being on the summit with me.